Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. This video does not have a spokesperson in it. There's no person from this agency explaining anything that's going on or anything like that. This comes from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. They posted this on their YouTube channel. And this is something that occurred August 11th, I believe it is. At least it was posted. I'm sorry, it occurred August 10. The incident occurred August 10, and this video was posted August 11. It says, yesterday, deputies responded to a home, Oetter Drive in South Daytona, to take a man into custody for an involuntary mental health assessment on a judge's order. On arrival, deputies found the man naked in the backyard, hosing himself off. He was not receptive to their presence, challenged them, and then dove into a retention pond. Multiple deputies and a trained negotiator attempted to convince the man to come out of the water with no success. Deputies boarded on airboat to approach and ultimately take him into custody. Several South Daytona police officers also assisted in carrying him to shore. During the struggle, several units were punched and kicked, including one deputy who was struck in the eye and sustained multiple gashes to his face that required stitches. The defendant was charged with 1 count of aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer, 8 counts of battery on a Leo, and 9 counts of, 9 counts of resisting arrest and violence. The defendant was not injured, but still transported to the hospital for evaluation as a precaution. They say mental health calls are difficult for all involved, and that they're posting the video to show the tough situations their deputies and officers face and their dedication to resolving them. All right, so let's get into it.
Hey, man. Sheriff's Office.
I can see your picture right here. I'm not hurting anybody.
Yep.
What's up, Brian?
Just clean yourself
I'm
off.
fine. I'm cleaning myself off. If you guys don't get off my property, I promise I'm going to start spraying you with this hose. You can finish. Starting with you. Starting with you. You motherfuckers turn my hose off and you get gone. I'm going to start whipping this thing around. If you pull that taser out, I'll fucking...
Brian, chill.
Hey, motherfucker.
Brian.
You stand back. Let's go. Hey. Push buttons, you wrote papers, you signed. You pointed a gun at me, you're standing in my yard.
Sir, I didn't point a gun at you.
Well, you got a gun on your wall, you fucking take it off.
But I haven't taken it out and done anything to you.
They all pointed it at me. They pulled their tasers out and they ran. I
I
thought,
wasn't here for that.
well, now you are a big motherfucker.
And I'm trying to see what we can do to resolve this.
Well, you point that gun at them, you tase them, you haul them off my yard, you fucking shoot them in the head, every one of them. Well, if I had a gun, it's my property.
What can we do to resolve
It's not that deep. He's just going under to grab mud off the grab bottle.
Yeah. He's naked, by the way, so you're not going to really have anything to grab onto.
If he gets in, it's under the boat. Watch.
Come here, buddy. Watch, don't let him grab you. Right here. You see him?
They're drowning me!
No, you're not going to be able to.
They're drowning me! They're drowning me! They're drowning me!
Hey, go forward.
Now, do it.
Go. I got a hand. Stand by. He ain't going nowhere. I got one hand.
I got his leg.
Go to shore.
I got a leg. I got that leg.
I got a cup on this hand.
Good.
Cup on that hand.
I'm coming already.
Help me.
Look at me.
Hey,
Relax.
I can't breathe.
Relax.
I can't fucking
Brian,
breathe.
stop.
Brian, help me.
Stop.
Help me. Please.
You want this one off?
No, I want. It's too tight. It's
It's too tight.
Okay.
It's messing up my lungs. He's got my neck. I can't breathe.
Okay.
He's
Don't
got my
fucking
neck.
move. Don't move.
My legs are
Don't pull your arms.
I'm
Relax.
not moving.
Okay.
This is the grass. I can't breathe.
Okay. Rest your head right there.
As soon as
And
you
look at
just
me.
come, you will turn it over so you can stand.
Okay.
All right. So this guy's going to have some interesting scars and interesting story for the rest of his life. Naked dude. I've had to fight a naked dude before. Actually, I've had to fight naked dudes a couple times before, and it's not fun. It's a very awkward kind of thing. Like, you're dealing with a naked person and you're having to fight them and be super close to them and in close contact with them. So obviously this guy is not right. There's some type of judicial order coming out saying that he's going to have to be detained for mental health evaluation, whatever. So that shows that these officers, they came there knowing they're going to take this dude into custody, right? Like, they know this guy is going in cuffs, whether he likes it or not. So they arrived there with sufficient numbers. There you see 2 over here, and I believe there's 3 on the left over here. So they got there with enough time, obviously, to have sufficient numbers and make this plan of, hey, we're going to go to this side of the house, you're going to go to this side of the house. At that point, I think that some other things could have been brought out and put into play. For example, identifying who's going to be utilizing tasers and or other less lethal type of devices, such as like a 40 millimeter launcher or a 12 gauge beanbag. I have no idea if they even have the BOLA device, but this kind of scenario right here would be a great scenario for the BOLA wrap device to be able to be utilized. So once he starts to act like this, I think that the BOLA wrap could have been deployed, boom, wrapped around his legs. He's not going to be able to go anywhere. They close in. If his upper extremities, he's still wanting to fight, then shoot him with a taser or hose him down with OC and get compliance out of him and then wrestle him into cuffs. Even if they didn't have a BOLA wrap, then I think taser would have been a good option. Unfortunately, it looks like this guy wasn't fully prepared as far as having gloves on. I think that if you're going to be going hands-on, going to be doing something physical, going to be cuffing somebody up, it's probably best to go ahead and put PPE on beforehand versus going in there hoping they'll come out, peacefully and not have to have the gloves on. I think that had this officer had his taser out and would have been a designated contact officer for the taser, I think that at this point, he would have been able to deploy taser on this guy and most likely achieve NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation. The guy has no clothing on. There's nothing that's going to cause a entanglement for the probe to create a clothing disconnect because he has no clothing. So the only way that a taser would fail at this point is if both the probes hit too close together and then we're not spread far enough apart to achieve an MI, or if one probe missed. That's the only way that the tasers are going to fail in this scenario. So I think if this deputy had a taser out, I think this could have ended a lot quicker. Even right here, as he's non-compliant, he's defiant. I mean, he just started spraying him down with water. He said he's going to take this hose and swing it around and hit him with it. At this point, this guy has already established that he's not going to cooperate. There is nothing else you can say to this dude to convince him that he is going to go into a pair of handcuffs peacefully. The only way to properly de-escalate this scenario is to use physical force, not to stand there and try to talk things out. It's already clear. Talking is not going to work. And in fact, standing around trying to talk is just going to make things worse. It's going to escalate things. And that's what happens a lot of times when the verbal de-escalation fails. People stay in that verbal de-escalation mode and don't progress out of it. And what's that do? That leads to incidents actually escalating. But when you tell people that physical force is a means to de-escalate a scenario, some people, it blows their mind. Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? Shooting someone with a taser is de-escalation. No, you're supposed to talk to them. No, that's what your fucking hug-a-thug people want you to believe. That's what your admin people who don't work the street, who present this bullcrap to you, that's what you want to think. It's all verbals. It's not all verbals. It can include physical force and needs to be including physical force to properly prevent things from escalating to the point where deadly physical force may have to be used. So definitely think that it would have been appropriate use of a taser, even if he's butt naked. Don't care. Appropriate use of taser, bring him under control and take him into custody that way. Even as he started to run, I think it would have been acceptable. Now, notice the timestamp up here, 21:13. He takes off, still 21:14. Now we jump to 22:03. Or is that a 9? I don't know, I can't see it very well, but 2,200 hours. That's a long amount of time. So I would say that shortly after he took off running, he probably jumped in this retention pond and probably remained there for a long enough time for multiple people to get there and someone to go out there and negotiate with him. That is a long time. What are their options at this point? Well, pretty limited. Can't utilize taser on him at this point because, one, he's in the water. If you utilize a taser on someone while they are in water, they lose control over their limbs. They cannot keep themselves afloat and they can drown. There's no risk of electrocuting a person. Like some people, obviously untrained people who have not had any training, they'll say stuff like, oh, that'll electrocute him. You can't have water near him. He'll be electrocuted. As if water somehow magically enhances the output of the taser that it's technologically designed and restricted on anyway. Like it only produces so many amps in joules. Like it's very, very low, right? Like just the presence of water is not going to change that and make it go any higher. So there's no way to electrocute a person to death if they're wet or in water. The risk is they lose control over their limbs, they can't stay balanced, and they fall backwards, and because they can't stay afloat, they drown. And the other problem with utilizing taser is only his head at this point is visible. There's no justification to fire taser into his head at this point. The only time you're justified to fire taser into someone's head is if they are doing something that meets the requirement to be able to use deadly physical force against them. And right now, he's just not doing anything to warrant that level of force. Could they potentially use other things? Well, 12-gauge beanbags out of the question, 40-millimeter launchers out of the question because you can't strike the head. Could they utilize pepper spray? I think so. I think using pepper spray would be a justifiable use of force on this to gain compliance. Otherwise, this guy's going to sit in there as long as he wants. Eventually, he's going to have to come out. Like, he's going to get hungry, right? He's going to get cold. So he's going to come out at some point. He's going to have to fall asleep at some point. I don't know anybody who can fall asleep floating on water. So he's eventually going to have to come out of that pond. But the police just don't have the time and the resources to wait that out. What, you're going to have a special shift of 20 officers surrounding this entire fucking retention pond, waiting for this guy to tire himself out and eventually come out of the water? Hell, that could last a day. That's not feasible. That's not feasible at all. That's not fair to the rest of the community with all the law enforcement officers being tied up on something like this when they could be out catching criminals. So something has to be done other than just sitting there waiting for him to come out. So I think utilizing pepper spray on him, spraying him, could help get him to come to shore. Now, yes, he can just dunk his head underwater, let it wash away, and come back up, but it's still going to burn. Like, even after being sprayed with pepper spray in training, you get to go to the water hose and spray your face off and get that water to flush out that particulate matter from your eyes, but it still freaking burns afterwards. Even after standing there for a couple minutes with the nice cool fresh water coming out of the hose, you take that away, it still freaking burns. It sucks. So they could have got an MK9 potentially, have the stream reach out pretty far, and just spray him. And then when he dunks his head and washes it away and washes it out of his eyes, fucking spray him again. And let him wash it off, rub it out of his eyes, then spray him again. He's going to get tired of that shit eventually. Just keep doing it until he complies. I don't think that sending a dog in would be a viable option. I'm sure the dog would bite once it gets out there, but the dog's not going to be able to do what it's capable of doing in an aquatic environment like that. It's not going to be able to get its paws into something to balance itself and get a good purchase point. And you run the risk of drowning the dog at that point. And potentially even that guy drowning too. But more so, I would have more of a concern about the dog being drowned. So K9's not a very good option. Pepper ball, I mean, not really an option because he can't strike his head. Firing the pepper balls into the water's just going to make a bunch of splashing. The powder's not going to... I don't think it would burst the way it would against a wall or a ceiling or something like that. So that would be ineffective. Could they potentially use a net? Possibly, but then that runs the risk of potentially drowning him or something like that. And no one's trained to utilize a fishing net to catch a person. So at this point, other than just trying to spray this dude with pepper spray and get him tired of feeling that to make him come back in, the only other option is to do an in-water contact, to go out there and grab him. And even that is a dangerous, risky move. There have been numerous cases of rescue swimmers going out to rescue victims, like people who have done nothing wrong, they don't want to fight and get away, but because of fear overtaking those people and them being scared to death of drowning, they will climb on top of the rescuers, trying to keep themselves afloat, and that mere action alone causes the rescuer to go underwater, and the rescuer drowns. So when it comes to water rescue, you throw, row, go. You throw something out there to them so that they can grab it, and then you pull them back in, or you reach something out there to them, like a paddle or a stick or something like that. You row a boat out there to them, and then use the reach and throw techniques before getting close to them and pull them closer. And then go is your in-water contact. So reach, throw, row, go. Go is typically the last option because it is one of the most dangerous options for the rescuer when doing it in water contact. There are some techniques to protect yourself when you go into the water to effect a rescue on a person. As you're making that approach, you can purposely splash water into their face, cause an involuntary eye closure, and try to maneuver yourself and get closer to them to be able to grab a limb and maneuver them in a way that you're pulling their back to your chest, so that you're kind of spooning almost. And then you can kick back, your flotation device keeping you afloat and them kind of being on top of you in a sense, and then keeping them afloat and then calming them down. There are some physical techniques for defending yourself against the person who is trying to climb you. Those can be simple, punching them. That's a very basic, effective measure to get a person off of you. Just punch them. Utilizing your feet, so you can get your feet up into their pelvic region and drive out, just similar to how you do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Dig those heels into their hips and push outwards and push them away. That can create some distance for you. You can start to swim away from them. You can, if it's a male, you can reach down, grab their genitals, and squeeze hard. That will make them release. I don't care. I don't care who you are. Every guy, any guy you grab their balls and you squeeze hard, they're going to fucking let go. All right. There's that option. It's not one that is overly talked about publicly. It's not something that you'd probably hear a lot of people wanting to discuss and talk about, but you can also do a roll. A roll is where you basically dunk them to try and bring control over them. It can backfire and freak them out even more, but you can roll them, you can dunk them, and then, you know, when their heads come back up, you tell them, you keep doing this, I'm going to do this again. And that could maybe, you know, scare them into compliance. But like I said, that's not something that's really overly talked about or even like written down in literature to talk about, but that could be an option. Those are from the rescue aspects. What about for going in and capturing people who don't want to be captured, doing the law enforcement thing? Well, typically this type of training you see with your Fish and Wildlife or your conservation officers across the states. They actually have law enforcement water survival courses that they take to help them in the event that they were to fall into the water with an aggressor or something like that. So I've got some videos from a few different agencies to show you what that looks like. So we'll get into those.
We're conducting water survival training for our new recruit class, Class 19. It's got quite a reputation, and it's well deserved. 35 weeks of training before they're ready to start the FTO program, the Field Training Officer program. This is week 2, where they do all the water survival early on. It's a big boost to their cardiovascular conditioning. It gives them an opportunity to work on getting in better shape and getting them ready for the rest of the academy. First thing we're going to do is going to be kicks. Remember the kicks we did on the shallow end?
We're a specialized law enforcement division from what we deal with.
We spend a lot of time on the water. This gives the recruits an opportunity to find out what their limitations are in the water.
When you're in the water, you're in a deadly force environment. You're basically surrounded by a weapon at all times.
You know, they have experience just swimming in backyard swimming pools or out at the lake. But when we get them here and we get them into the pool and we start kind of increasing the stress level and putting on the full duty gear, you know, that increases the stress. It's going to increase the fatigue. So
when you're in the water, the danger level just multiplies. We teach our officers to not go in the water because bad things can happen in the water. If they are pushed in the water or they go in, we teach them how to defend themselves in the water. You could take somebody that runs, lift weights, they can be in excellent physical shape, and when you put them in the pool and it just works, totally different muscles.
I'd done some research and other officers had warned me to train for this, so I'd been in the pool prior to a little bit, but I don't think you can prepare yourself for this type of training. I was just told that you need to be in shape for swimming. I thought maybe a distance or a time swim. I didn't know you'd actually be fighting in the water, sir.
The stakes are high.
Going in the water is not fearful, but when you're engaged with somebody, a lot of things start going through your head. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, it's something you don't ever forget. I remember when I went through. Well, the drill they do before they enter the water with the red man is it's simulating they've already been in a confrontation, a minute and a half confrontation with somebody. So they do the lap around the pool. They do 30 seconds of baton strikes.
Open the door! It's fast.
And hammer fist. Some knee strikes.
Get down! Get down! Get down!
And that's just simulating that they've been in a confrontation with somebody.
It's something you have to do. I mean, you can talk about it and watch people, but until you physically do that, you're never going to understand what it could be in the water.
It is and can be the most physically demanding training. That's pretty much the feedback we get. It's one of the hardest things that they do as a conservation officer in training. And when the other officers come from other agencies, it's usually one of the more physically demanding classes they've ever taken.
I'm a sergeant with Fort Thomas Police in Campbell County, Kentucky. I've been a police officer for over 14 years and have taken about every tactical class since about 2003 is when I first came on SWAT. And I've taken all those classes, and I heard this was a tough class. When you're on land and you take a tough course and you get tired, you know, you can bend a knee or you can bend over and catch your breath. You know, here, if you stop, you sink. It's hands down the most physically challenging class that I've ever taken in 14 years of taking tactical classes and advanced tactical class. And it's a real gut buster.
It's designed to build confidence from the first day to the last day.
Actually, week long, you find out how far your body can be pushed, find your limits.
And so seeing where those limitations are and then knowing that you can go past those limitations physically and mentally, that was the toughest thing.
But the biggest thing that they teach, other than all the skills they learn, is what they're capable of themselves, because they come in with a limit in their mind of what they can do, and they can always do more than what they think they can. And they learn that here, that they can do more and push harder than they ever thought they could. The only thing I had on my mind was do what I was trained to do. As long as you've done what you were trained to do, you were going to come out on top.
Being able to complete the class and do all the techniques and be able to test out on the 4th day is quite an accomplishment.
So far, it's probably been one of the hardest and actually the greatest thing that I've accomplished so far into this process.
I'm going to throw down the gauntlet right now for all other law enforcement officers, tactical officers especially in the state of Kentucky, that if they want a challenge, they should definitely come down to Frankfort here, or come over to Frankfort and take part in this class.
As far as an officer's situation, I would have no doubt of going in the water, need be, whatever the situation was.
We still have a lot of work to do, but we're proud of them.
Just take it one day at a time, sir. Try not to get ahead of yourself. And just pray that God blesses you with the skills and abilities to fulfill your job duties.
The cadets are going over some of the water survival training. It basically incorporates some of the circumstances that a conservation officer could come across during his everyday job, during his everyday experience. Today we have an optional course that's set up. The cadet will actually go down to the bottom of a 12-foot pool, picking up the sim gun, as though we were doing a retrieval of evidence or something like that, any type of maritime operation. Once the cadet brings the weapon back to the surface, he'll hand it off to an instructor and he'll swim to the rope. From the rope, he will actually swim underwater while exhaling on one breath to the corner of the pool, which is going to be approximately 12 to 13 meters underwater. At that point, he will pick up supposedly like an infant. He will make sure that he keeps it above the surface, and he will swim from one width of the pool to the next, which is 25 meters across. From that point, he will go underneath a loop, which is positioned at 12 feet down in the pool. And when they come to the surface, they will actively engage a suspect. It just basically teaches them that no matter what happens, they'll always have the upper hand. Our our cadets and our police, everyone in our agency has to go through this course, and it just gives them water confidence and assurance that no matter what kind of operation they do in the water, always ensure that the cadets have an upper hand no matter what happens.
That's 2 minutes!
These Texas game wardens are hitting the water, which isn't easy when you're wearing 20 pounds of gear.
There you go. We've got weighted gun belts with metal guns in it and bulletproof vests and our full uniform, boots, everything.
6 Texas game wardens have drowned in the line of duty. This groundbreaking training aims to change that.
This is to give them the skills to survive falling into water. If they're boarding a shrimp boat, getting from one boat to another, falling in.
Good morning, State Game Warden.
Respond to a flooded situation and slip and fall into the water.
I'll hold on to landing.
Somebody fights them and ends up in the water.
Stay back.
We want them to be comfortable enough in the water to be able to survive that and get back out.
Texas game wardens are some of the first officers in the nation to receive this specialized training.
You can rupture your eardrum during this evolution.
It's based on real-life situations.
The first part of the obstacle course, it's to simulate being under a boat hull or in a boat cabin caught. Then they will swim and hold a volleyball to simulate somebody's head above the water, a small child above the water, any object like that.
A little bit farther, come on.
It is a very physically demanding class.
Push through it.
It's totally different than wearing just a bathing suit. I mean, it's all added weight that's just dragging you down.
You don't float like you normally would with just normal swimwear on. You start sinking a lot faster.
Keep going, you're almost there.
This training is helping everybody overcome that moment of panic to show us that we can do it and instill confidence in us.
And while they may not win most graceful, ultimately they could save lives.
These are the skills that they're developing so that their name is not on a plaque on the wall.
Push through it, come on.
For Texas Parks and Wildlife, this is Abe Moore.
Hi, this is Sergeant Kopelov at the Virginia Conservation Police. Our 11th Basic Academy is in week 19 out of 27 weeks. They're set to graduate on April 8th of this year. Today they're finishing up their 2-day course on officer water survival, and the upcoming 2 weeks they'll be focused on firearms training.
So this training is important for officers in the field and new recruits. With a state boating agency, we spend a lot of time in and around water. We're on boats. It doesn't really depend on where you are in the state, or it doesn't matter where you are in the state. You can end up on a trout stream, or you can end up on the eastern shore and what we refer to as big water. Our job is to patrol the waters of the Commonwealth. So there's really that situation where at any given time we could just be checking a fishing license, and next thing you know, we end up in the water. Maybe it's to effect a rescue, someone fell in, or maybe it's because someone decided they wanted to push us in the water, and now we're in that situation. But we spend so much of our time around water that it's important to have these basics under the belt of how an officer works in their full uniform, because we're all used to swimming in a swimsuit, but the uniform adds a very different dynamic. The other things we're testing on are their ability to swim, so we've taught them a few different strokes, moving from people who don't know how to swim all the way up to advanced swimmers. And then our final test that we want to see pass is an obstacle course. So that kind of brings everything together into, I guess, a culmination of what they've done over the last day. And that simulates things from if their vessel ends up rolling over, if their vehicle ends up in the water, they swim through something underwater that's about the size of a vehicle window or a boat window, so that they have that experience in full uniform swimming through those obstacles. And we kind of wrap up the course with what we call a red man scenario, and that is an aggressor situation where either someone pushes them into the water or tackles them into the water, or tackles them into the water and continues to pursue them with that intent to hurt them, possibly kill them. So we train from very intro level all the way up to that more aggressive level, and like I said, it's a crash course in 2 days. Absolutely feel like being able to teach this and be a part of this teaching cadre It gives me a sense of accomplishment. It makes me feel like we're sending these new officers into the field with the skill set that they need in order to self-rescue or rescue others if need be.
So, as you can see, there can be a lot of training involved in water survival. And as you can imagine, trying to do this stuff with a uniform on is pretty difficult. At least from the water rescue standpoint, a dry suit or a wet suit aids you in having buoyancy. Having just a simple wetsuit on, you can float better, or dry suit as well. And having a flotation device on, right, like that helps prevent you from drowning. When you are wearing regular uniform pants, a pair of boots, uniform shirt, belt, that stuff doesn't float very well. You do not become very buoyant at that point. And then add on the fact you may have a gun belt on or something like that. So when they get actually to the video here of them being on the boat, you can tell that they've taken their gun belts off. And most likely have taken their vests off as well, so that they're not overweighted. But even then, still, being in a uniform and everything, it's different. And you can actually see his belt keeper right here. So where he took his duty belt off, that belt keeper remained. Just simply wearing this is going to weigh you down. And then, as I noted earlier once before, having this rescue device that he has on, not the best thing to be bringing to this fight. This is something that if you've ever remember watching Baywatch or anything, this is what one of those rescue devices looks like. The rescue swimmer can go out, give this to the victim. They can also utilize this as flotation for themselves, but they give this thing to the victim. It has a long tether on it and a strap that stays on the rescuer, and the rescuer can swim and tow the person behind them. I mean, I just don't think this guy's going to be, very actively wanting to hold on to this little buoy thing while he's swimming back in, because he knows what's going to happen when he's swimming back in. So bringing that thing in there is totally ineffective, I think. I think at this point that, they could have got this boat in there and they could have sprayed some pepper spray at him, maybe even hit him with it, and scare him into going into shore. And that kind of effort, I think, would have been a better thing to do. Going hands-on into that is a last resort option because it can be such a deadly option. As was noted in that video, one of the students said, it is a deadly force environment. You are surrounded by a deadly force. You're surrounded by water. It will kill you. And what would be their plan if they go to do this in-water contact? All these people get out there, or at least a couple of them do initially, and he starts to drown one of them. Is one of these people on the boat got a gun to be able to do something with? These guys who are going in don't have their guns. He's taking his gun belt off, and presumably he has too. So what to do at that point? Well, you're going to have to hope that whoever's still on that boat is a good shot and doesn't end up shooting one of these people. So, in-water contact, very last option. I think best option would be to pepper spray him and just give him a huge amount of pain to convince him to come back to shore. It's unfortunate that this being Florida, it's unfortunate that there just wasn't an alligator in that damn pond. That would have been the best case scenario for everyone involved, for him to jump in there butt ass naked and there'd be an alligator in there to meet him. I mean, how many times have you seen videos of alligators in Florida just walking across a golf course or, you know, somewhere in public, being in someone's driveway, right? Like, they're freaking everywhere down there. Why couldn't there have been an alligator in the pond on this scenario right here to chomp his ass and deal with him? All right, not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.